Hello, my name is Jonathan Williams, the founder of Algae News, and this is what I'm calling Algae Talk, and this is our first episode. In these episodes, I hope to give you information about the algae industry and the companies within them. As you can see, I'm actually sitting out on my balcony, and behind me is actually the skyline of Columbia, South Carolina, which is far away from most algae centers, but nevertheless, I hope to be able to give you some very pressing and up-to-date information about the algae industry. The first thing I want to talk to you guys about today is Solazyme's recent IPO filing, which allowed them to get on the stock market, the NASDAQ stock market, in fact, and they actually were very successful. If you watched over the past 2 weeks, the price of their shares have fluctuated, but have stayed at or above $20, and right now they've been hovering around $22 for the past week. This is very good news for the algae industry and other companies that might be looking to offer shares in their company, and it can show that algae companies can stand on their own. So this is good. It should open up the industry more and also give incentives for investors to invest into more algae companies. In other news, some industry news, I don't know if you've ever had this problem, but I'm sure many researchers and companies who are growing algae have. They probably wonder just how much algae they can get out of the ponds they have. Well, as the saying goes, there's now an app for that. Texas A&M researchers have released an app for the iPhone and also a web-based version for the Android and for any other kind of phone that only has internet capabilities, to be able to estimate just how much algae you can get out of a certain pond. This is great news and should be able to allow researchers and those in companies to be able to quickly estimate how much they get out of their ponds, and also mobility for them to not have to go back and crunch numbers in the lab. So that's great. Recently it was announced, and also the great part is it was recently endorsed by the Algal biomass organization, which is one of the largest trade organizations for algae in the United States. So that's all great news. Lastly, we have some research news. Just recently, an MIT team has announced that they've been able to increase the yields of hydrogen from algae. Don't know if you're aware of this, but algae actually does produce hydrogen as well as sugars and other things that plants produce. And it does this by splitting water molecules. So what researchers have done is that they've made it so that instead of producing sugar, algae are now devoting their energies to producing hydrogen while still producing enough sugar for them to survive. Initial reports say that they will be able to produce around 400% more hydrogen than normally is produced with algae. Whether or not what these numbers actually are and how well they can scale is yet to be seen, but it is also very good because if we want to get eventually to a hydrogen economy, we're using hydrogen for fuel, algae might be a great source to produce this hydrogen in a very economic, feasible, and renewable way. So hopefully researchers will be continuing that line of research, and hopefully we'll be receiving more news about that. If you're interested though, one company has been doing a lot of research into algae producing hydrogen, and that has been Origin Oil, a company based out of Los Angeles. I will put a link on this video so you can actually go to them and see what kind of research they've been doing, but it's also been very exciting and they've been doing a lot of great things. Well, that's all for today's episode, the first episode of Algae Talk. All the information, all the links and stuff talked about today will be available on algaenews.com under the Algae Talk section, so you can easily go to check them out. If you have any questions, please message us, or things we want us to talk about, let me know and I'll be sure to research that. Also, please check out 2 of our exclusive interviews on Algae News. One is by the director of Aquaflow, a New Zealand algae fuel company. His name is Nick Garrison, and he's talking about their partnership with UOP Honeywell, which is a company, and how Aquaflow has been partnered with them to sequester industrial waste, such as wastewater as well as CO2. Additionally, National Research Council of Canada scientist Patrick McGinn also was interviewed about how Canada is actually looking at ways to produce algae in their climate, which is obviously a lot colder than the U.S. As well as other places in the world that are looking to produce algae. A lot of his answers are very interesting, so I definitely recommend you check him out. Well, I hope you guys had fun and this was interesting and as well as helpful. So please check us out next week. Talk to you soon.